All right, welcome everybody back to another edition of The Truth About Addiction and Recovery. I'm Scott Jones, and today I have a special guest, not just a special guest, but a good friend of mine, Joe Bryan. And Joe is the CEO or the owner. How do you
chief cook, bottle washer,
of
the Beachcomber, yeah.
At the Beachcomber Treatment Center? A couple of locations. I guess your main one is in Boynton Beach.
Our oldest location is in Delray.
Delray.
Yeah.
Delray.
2 IOPs, and one in Boynton and one in commercial in Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. Now, you're also involved in FATC. We're going to talk about all that, but here's the first thing I want to ask you. You were kind of born into this, weren't you? I mean, there's a lot of people that out there, and they get involved in treatment, and they get in it because they're going to make a ton of money, and they, maybe they went through. But you were actually born into this industry, weren't you?
Oh yeah. Well, this is the strange thing. When my father is alcoholic. He got kicked out of the house. So the first time I met my father was at a treatment center. He was working. So there we go, start there. And then the next time he's working at a treatment center and living on their property is the next time I saw him. And I moved in with him, and we lived on the treatment center property. So probably around 7, 8 years old, I've been around treatment then. But it's weird, it was a state hospital. We're out there playing volleyball with the patients, and that was the first experience to be around addicted people too. It's an old TB hospital converted to a alcohol drug treatment center, so it was a little scary too, being a young person in a facility like that.
But it normalized it for you.
Oh, it was normal after that.
You didn't have the stigma some other people might feel. No.
But the first time it was different, but then it was natural. I played baseball with the patients. The Bryans, they had the Bryans against the patients in all sports. We played basketball. Ate probably 3-4 times a week with the patients. As a 13, probably from 10 to 13, constantly would eat with them, and because they had the better food than home.
That's good. That's good.
I usually would say, "Well, what are we having at the house?" They would say something. I go find out what it was. Chit chat at the time. Karen, what are they having at Karen? Ooh, that sounds good. So I'd have a choice, and I always went with the best choice. Usually was Karen.
So your father started Beachcomber, correct?
Yes, my father started the Beachcomber right in 1976.
Wow, so 1976. That's got to be one of the oldest treatment centers in this area. It's got to be.
Yeah, there was 2 other ones. One was Bowling Green, which closed, and the other is Palm Beach Institute, which has been under about 5 or 6 different owners, and it closed for a while. So we could say we're the oldest continuous treatment program. But since we haven't closed, we like to. It's a battle between the PBI and us, but we both accept that we're both old program.
And it's a truly owned or family-owned business.
Yes,
it's not something where somebody came in and bought it and then tried to build it. And this has been a family mission.
This is one of the few programs in the country that has stayed under one family mission. Most of them have gone like Karen, which was run by Dick Karen. Ended up becoming a foundation. A number of programs, that's what happened. The family below didn't want to do it. Right now, my nephew is involved, my son's involved, and I have, we had a niece involved for a little while, and then three brothers, so it might continue on.
Wow, you're grooming them to take over the mantle and keep it going.
And my wife works at the Beachcomber. She does the financial part. My son is involved in admissions and other things. He's also an engineer. And then, of course, Jim is involved in the commercial property. Frank is involved with the Boynton property. And then my nephew, Eric, is very much being groomed to probably move up, I would assume. He loves this industry. He loves dealing with and helping people get better. So I think he's really going to thrive in this industry.
So 1976. So we're talking, what, 24 years? No, 34 years. No.
46, something like that. Yeah, 46. Yeah.
This isn't a show about math. I don't have to get this right.
Well, I bet you can't guess how much 28 days was in 1976.
I was just going to say, let's talk about how it's changed in all that time. So in 1976, 28 days, you're talking about the cost of
treatment.
$5,000?
$525 for 28 days.
$525.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, not everybody was that price, but my father was the maintenance, and my father was the director of therapy, and we had a lot of support from the community. So it was a community effort in the really, because treatment wasn't in Florida, it was all up north. And everybody employed at first, we had someone from Pittsburgh, two from Philly, and I don't know who else. Some of the support staff were local, but all the therapists were out of state.
Right.
The funny story is our first patient, Thanksgiving Day, we weren't supposed to open to December, till actually January 31st. They drove up all the way past the driveway onto the lawn, and one patient fell out, and the other one, supposedly the driver, who supposedly was sober, was also drunk. Yeah, so that was a Thanksgiving Day, about 3 a.m. we got our first patient.
Boy, that's the way to kick it off, huh? That's incredible. So, obviously, financially it's changed. What about the philosophy of treatment? Has that changed over the years, or do you try to keep it,
No, the philosophy's got to stay the same. Now, we have added on things, but the philosophy is, one is never lie. Get the patients to be honest with your patients. You have to be very careful. First of all, patients have to trust where they're at. If they don't trust, you will get nothing out of it.
Right.
So, and the other thing is, everything matters. The little things matters. For example, if something breaks, you fix it immediately. Some of the things the programs have lost thought of, if you don't take care of things, the patient will see that, and they already come from a mistrusting world. They just see you as a money, and then they stop listening. So it's very important to try to do the best you can. Of course, some things you can't fix right away.
Yeah, right.
But take care of it. For example, one of the big things is, if you tell a patient, we can talk a little bit later. If you don't, go to that patient, say, I apologize, I got busy, because they just see that as another lie. They don't see it as you being busy because of where they are in their recovery.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's very important to be very careful of making sure you follow up with everything. But there's so many little things you just don't know about. The little things matter. That's right. Everything matters. Little things matter.
Yeah, I think sometimes we get caught up in the bells and whistles and the, with online marketing and everybody having access to videos and photographs and everything else, people put on this really great face. And sometimes you even may get some of those things, but that's not the substance that you need. It's not the content you need. The content you need is exactly what you're saying. Honesty, transparency, caring about the client, not having so many clients that you don't know their names.
That's a big one, in my book. Yeah.
That's important. I've seen that in treatment centers, in the past, where a therapist has a caseload and doesn't know everyone's name on their caseload.
Right, and you also lose the perspective of, for example, I a case that's happened, and the therapists have to be very. They make mistakes. I had a therapist that made a mistake. I knew he made a mistake, and I didn't know it at first, but when we found out, the patient was upset that the therapist gave him the wrong information. And after discussing with the patient, I agreed with him. You are right. We were wrong. Then I had to ask the therapist, I think you should apologize to the individual for what we had done.
Yeah.
It's he needs to hear that. And he understands we're not always right. But the therapist couldn't apologize. I had to fire him. If you can't admit a mistake, because we're asking our patients one of the first things to do is, be honest. If you made a mistake, admit it. He couldn't do it. I had to let him go.
Wow.
My father always told me a story. And when he got sober, he was sober about 6 months. He was doing concrete, and it really struck me at home when I heard this one. And he goes, he added too much water he ran the concrete truck.
Right,
Everyone
right.
knows you add too much water, you ruin it. So his boss calls him in and said, "Mr. Bryan, get in here right away." My dad walks in and said, "What the hell happened?" And my dad said, "I put too much water in it." And the guy was frozen. He didn't know what to say. He was expecting
excuses and lies and
right. And so he said, "But don't let it happen again." He said, "Get out of here." And I learned, because I had a hard time when I first started Beachcomber. I was always trying to cover. And through the Beachcomber, I learned that it's a lot easier to admit your mistakes, and you're human. Accept it, So
Yeah.
we have to be expected to, if we make a mistake, go to that patient. "Hey, I was wrong." Hey, and it proves to them that you really care about what they think. And that's
it takes away that that kind of hierarchy of the therapist is up here and the client's down there,
absolutely.
which is not what you do. I mean, you don't have the big fancy offices and the big, all that. I when I go over and I visit often, and I love coming over and seeing you guys. I love coming out and seeing a therapist sitting out at the picnic table with a client and doing a session and walking around or walking them down to the beach and talking. That so much more can be said in those moments than sitting in an office staring at somebody's diplomas on the wall.
That was designed. My father had worked a number of programs.
Yeah.
One of the things he really disliked was, and I've been around, people have meetings, and sometimes have meetings to have meetings. We would have only one meeting, and it was to deal with patients. We have no offices except for the offices that are used for privacy. But no therapist gets an office. It's a shared office. The fact was you want to keep, and I know therapists don't want to hear this, but they can't shut the door. They're not, while you're there, you're available. When you're not there, I have a therapist, do not have to come in and fill in. They don't have to do anything extra once they leave. They don't get calls from us. But while they're there, and so they're always available. Now, then they have to tell the patient, "Listen, I'm a little busy, I'll come and talk to you later." But you can't go into the office and shut the door where you're unavailable.
Right.
And when you only have 16 patients, you can keep track of 16 patients. You may not know every exact detail, but that way, the therapist can't say, "Well, you got to wait till your therapist comes in." Nothing worse than a patient saying, "Well, when's he going to be in?" "Well, he's on vacation. He'll be in next week." Well, really? That patient's not going to remember that or care to remember that. That's why every therapist should be able to handle whatever that crisis is, because the crisis is gone tomorrow. And the best thing to deal with as a crisis is today. Then they learn how to deal with it, and then they find out maybe the crisis wasn't as big, or you were able to deal with it. Tomorrow they won't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
They're ready. When they're ready, you better be ready is how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. I love that. I love the openness. Now, don't get us wrong, because there are private rooms for trauma therapies and obviously for medical and some other things. But the majority, I'd say probably 90% of everything that goes on the open, and it's much more relaxed.
Right.
It's much more. Everybody's kind of on the same page. Also, with the smaller population, one of the things I didn't see going on, which I've seen at other places, is the formation of cliques among clients.
Right.
This group of clients goes over here and they don't talk to this group of clients, and there's all they all with the rare exception of somebody who may be with some mental health issues, they all work together as a team to help each other too. And that's a great feeling. You could see that when you go into the Beachcomber.
Well, it also is, and this is, I know patients don't, it's hard for them to hear this, but the group is the most important thing. Meaning, if you are disrupting the group and they are not able to get something out of it, then somebody has to change. You can't change the group, you have to change the disruptor. Right. Now, of course, they always say, well, it's up to the therapist to make sure that works out. Well, I don't buy that completely, because there are some people who just don't want to be sober at that time. Yeah. I mean, the old expression, you can find the water for the horse. You can't make them drink it.
Right.
And there is some truth to that. And so you have to know your limitations. I had a patient that kicked out for chewing gum. We told her 3 times not to chew the gum group. It was bothering the other patient the way she chewed it. She kept doing it. And either we have to have some control or the patients run it. Well, we see what happens when the mob runs, things burn down, nothing gets done. If the group is very important, if the group is having a trouble with it, nobody's getting anywhere, and then it's a waste of time for people. So the group sees that you're serious. We don't want to, but it's probably the best thing for that person. But we don't want to kick people out. But how many chances do you get?
Well, and to make the assumption, which is arrogant, is the kindest way to say it. Is arrogant to make the assumption that your treatment center is right for everybody.
That's
what is ridiculous. But there are places that'll do. Oh yeah, we help everybody. No. There's going to be a great many people who come through your door that you say, this is not a good fit for you.
I detox will call me up. A couple of them will call me up and say, I may put the patient in there. They said this patient's not going to work well in your program. That's fine. I said, well, where do you recommend? And that happens a lot. Some patients just not going to finish at our program because we are serious. And one of the problems, I guess, if you're not serious, it's like I always compare to school. If you send your kid to a school where nobody's motivated, the chance of him making it out there with a degree is or graduating is very slim. Now, he's highly motivated, sure. Highly motivated, but we don't get that many people that are highly motivated. So you have to send your student or your kid or your child or your husband to a place where everyone's serious, where he doesn't get distracted. Right. Because the group, again, here we go, the group is important. If they're allowed to run the show, then nobody gets sober, and it's a crap show.
Yeah.
So there are rules, you have to follow them, and unfortunately, you have to adhere to them. Otherwise, nobody gets well.
Now, obviously, if somebody's not fitting in or working out, the staff, you guys do your best to put them someplace. You don't just, it's not hit the road, Jack.
No. But we have a bio bed. We try to get them that.
Okay.
We do that. Oh, no, there's a lot of method we try. I wouldn't kick someone out first week unless they're doing something. By the second week, if they're not getting it, the bio bed's not working, and the rapid resolution hasn't resolved it, and they're telling us, I really don't want to be here. I don't want to be sober. You don't want to keep them there because maybe they need to go to an IOP. Because if they're telling everyone else that and it gets into their head, they're going to start saying, why do I need it? So you have to do what's the best for the group.
And you assist them, is what I'm saying, is when they're if they do have to leave, it's not you just let them.
No, nobody goes.
You give them suggestions. Here's some ideas we can do. You help them if they want to go somewhere else. You help them do that because it's more important that they survive than stay with you.
Everyone has a plan. Whether it's a psychiatric, some people need to go to psychiatric. Some people need to go to a more of a PHP where it's a little less, maybe not as many rules. I don't think they're going to do well, but because life has rules. Jobs have rules.
They do. Yeah. And one of the things that's really important when you're trying to help somebody to become sober and to live in recovery is being able to be disciplined in routine, and disciplined in following rules, and disciplined in taking care of yourself. Right. Everything from brushing your teeth to washing your hair to doing whatever.
And these are important things. There's not a lot of rules. There's just a certain ones you have to adhere to.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. Yeah. Now, I guess we should address this because obviously it's not going away anytime soon. We kind of hoped it would with the COVID crisis, the coronavirus. We've had quarantines. And what's happened is the opioid epidemic has been pushed to page 6. If you can find it at all. Nobody's even talking about it. Right. It's not sexy anymore, Joe. I mean, it's like, hey, coronavirus.
Well, it was the homeless, then it was the, boom, AIDS, homeless. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
It's always something.
The media follows something, then once it moves to the back page, you don't hear anything more about it. I'm not saying it's not a problem. They just like to go with whatever's.
Well, of course, it's the hot topic.
And all the crises are still going on.
That's exactly my point, is that actually in some major cities, there's been as much as a 52% increase in overdose deaths.
And well, again, homeless people are not generally homeless people. Because if you give them a house, and let me tell you what, some of those people are going to take that copper out of there and sell it.
Yeah.
So, people don't understand when they use the term homeless. And I've talked to the people in Delray. Most of them have psychiatric issues, addiction issues. There are a few homeless, but the vast majority of them are not what you would consider somebody who doesn't have a home. They have other issues.
they have other issues that pull them out into the street or whatever it might be.
I guess there, but
I mean, it's crazy. But I guess the point is that, you know, maybe people watching this podcast and you've been seeing in the news and you assume, well, I'm not hearing about the opioid crisis or addiction or anything like that every day, so it's okay. It's not okay. As a matter of fact, it's worse. And one of the things that makes it worse, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, is the quarantining and the isolation, not having the connection with other people. That's a perfect scenario for addiction to go crazy, because addiction loves loneliness and isolation and separation.
That's why the alcohol is actually becoming more of an issue right now than, I'm not saying opiate, but that's why you see the sales in liquor stores going up. I think it was 22%.
Yeah. And we as a nation, of course, we're so indoctrinated that when the list of essential services came out, the very first list, liquor stores were on that list.
I think in Pennsylvania that includes liquor stores, if I remember. I did.
They consider that as essential as hospitals. I'm like, but that's how we think these days. Right. So, but it's important for people to know this is still going on. And if you've got somebody who needs help, help them. Because, you know.
It's a little bit, the problem is because of the isolation, people can hide their addiction better now, too.
And we're seeing a lot more people just, you know, going unnoticed. Their disease is getting worse. They're progressing. But since they're not around people, nobody's noticing. And so it's getting worse and worse. Now, some treatment centers had some issues staying open during crisis and everything else. You've always found a way to stay open, but you've had to put measures in place, correct?
We did stay open. We did have to do testing of the coronavirus. The staff, the patients are all pretty much don't mingle with the public. So the staff have to wear the mask for the most part. But in an inpatient setting, once they get out of detox and they're tested in detox, they're not with the public. So that's actually, they're safe. It's the therapist you have to make sure they don't pass it on, and that's why they have to wear the mask.
And I noticed you still did some things just in case. I mean, even though they were tested, when a new patient came in for the first few days, they're wearing a mask and they're doing some things. And, you know, so you guys are being very careful about that. And I know some people are worried about, you know, putting their son or daughter or loved one into a treatment center right now because of the crisis. But in a sense, because of the testing, the medical care and everything else, they're actually safer in there than they are going to work. In many
instances, they are, because let's say if you have a household, one of the persons is out working or out. That's where they were having problems in New York. Not picking on New York, but I noticed that's where the study came from. That the one person bringing in the household, since no one was leaving, that one person would pass it on to, and they couldn't understand why. I think that was one of the problems, because everyone was isolating and it passed one to one other.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Joe, you're involved in a lot of other things. Now,
yes.
For people who are watching the show, please, the Beachcomber information is on the screen. Give them a shout. Ask questions. You invite that, too. If somebody just wants to call and they don't know, maybe they don't know if they need treatment, or maybe their son or daughter, they just have a question, just call. You have no problem answering questions, right?
A lot of people call. They don't come now, but they may not come to Beachcomber. They may need just some IOP. They may just need counseling, or they may need a psychiatrist. We don't take everyone that comes to the door. Definitely not. That would be wrong to charge everybody that calls needs to come in. If you have somebody that has a minor addiction, what we call minor, I guess, what's a substance, what's the term they use? If you need outpatient, not substance abuse, but problem, they call it.
Right.
You can start there. Now, if you're drinking daily, we're talking different. If you're having problems with your drinking and major problems, you got different problems. But if you have everything intact and you're just drinking a little too much, then that might be an IOP issue. And I recommend IOP all the time. Absolutely.
So, feel free to call Beachcomber. The first question is not going to be, do you have insurance? Because I won't even talk to you if you don't. I mean, they'll talk to you and they'll find out what's going on and see if they can help you or guide you in the right direction. And that's important. But Joe, you're involved in other things too, as if this is not enough. As if you did not get dragged into the family business and this is not enough for you to suffer. You got involved in more, like Fat C.
Yeah, I started a nonprofit. It's kind of morphed into different things, but originally the nonprofit was the addicted person has lost ground as far as, how would we put it, not respect, but they're well, I don't want to say persecuted, but like for example, the mayor was saying, I don't know why anybody would hire an alcoholic or drug addict. There was years ago you could not say something like that. I mean, you can't say that about other areas. I mean,
Right.
I don't want to name anything because then you get, oh, you said that. But what I'm saying that you can't do that with any other group. Now you can say that with drug addicts, alcoholics. When did that start? You can, I guess I don't want to say, what's it when you, not racism, but when you don't allow someone because of their issue, that's called just discrimination. Discrimination. Yeah. Apologize. You're getting older, can't remember all the words. But I was talking to a mayor one time of Del Rey, and the way he was talking, you would think you're talking to someone from 1970.
Yeah. It's changed and things are better, but we still got a long way to go.
Well, but what happened we lost ground. Because who is actually standing out fighting for the treatment centers, addicted person, all that area? I mean, you got LCSWs, they have a group up in Tallahassee. Social work is the strongest lobbying group out there.
Okay.
The Homeless Coalition is very strong. But there is no coalition. Well, but in Washington. But locally speaking,
right,
there is nothing. Washington, every law that gets passed by DCF, they don't talk to any treatment center. They talk to social workers, licensed mental health, and the state-funded programs.
Yeah, they probably get some advice from insurance companies too.
And
just
insurance
saying.
companies.
Yeah.
But the treatment centers that the laws are being pushed on,
they don't have a voice.
They don't have a voice on it because they have not organized, and they haven't organized the individual recovering people, which is a huge voting block. If you want to get assistance or notice or to fight discrimination, which is eked its way back in there. You hear that. I want to rent to a bunch of recovering addicts. I mean, I've heard that often lately, which you didn't hear 10 years ago. Now, there was a problem because of our area. We had some issues. Those are all cleaned up. Well, not all cleaned up, but they have done a major job of cleaning that up.
Yeah, we know that one of the big ones is the Palm Beach Coalition the Palm Beach.
They were the Sober Houses Task Force. You had
Sober House Task Force,
Del Rey Task Force. They had a bunch of task forces.
There's been a lot,
and everybody's working together to clean up the community, and also the change in some of the billing helped dramatic make changes.
Absolutely, and certainly, and we've seen good people kind of get dragged down a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes doing things the right way doesn't always mean you're going to be able to stay in business when you're up against people who are not.
That's right.
So you need each other's support to continue to do things the right way, to have the right voice and representation. Florida Addiction Treatment Coalition, which is what we're talking about for you, the Fat C shortcut there. That's one of those things where we're trying to pull people together to give them a voice, to help support each other, and find a way through this. With the constant changes that are going on legally, the constant changes that are going on nationally, locally, changes in insurance, changes in everything.
Well, we also want to try to educate the public. How do you pick a treatment center? I mean, if you wait till the last minute, you pick it in crisis.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there are ways to pick it, but the problem is, how do you find that? I mean, the worst way is just pick the first one that comes in the phone book. You would like to hopefully have some questions that could tell you that this program may be, worthy of your loved one to go to. And plus, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, and you're working with somebody's life. So it's a very important decision.
I think one of the things that we need to point out is if you are looking for a treatment center, talk to them. Not
absolutely.
And if you don't, if you're not sure, if you're talking to somebody who's in the admissions department and you want to ask more questions, you can ask to speak to one of the clinical people.
Absolutely.
You can ask to speak to one of the owners or CEOs or whatever, and see if there's a way. But you have to have that feeling yourself. Do not pick it because they got the best picture on Facebook. It's not. I mean, I can't tell you how many treatment centers I see with the Facebook, with their internet ads and even their web pages, and they got beautiful pictures of young people in bikinis and shorts out on boats and going along.
Right.
And then you go to them and you say, do you guys go to the beach? No, we never go to the beach. Well, what the hell's that picture for?
That's right.
You know, it's pictures of ponies. Do you have ponies? No, we don't have ponies. We got a picture of a pony.
Yeah.
Make sure you talk to them. That's the first thing. And then find out about licensing. Make sure that they're up on their licensing. But those are all important things.
How many full-time therapists they have?
Yeah.
Big one. If they'll let you see the property. I've heard some treatment where they don't give people, they won't let you see it. If they won't let you see the property, I wouldn't go to somewhere who won't let you see it.
Of course not. Now, it is a little more difficult because of COVID about people coming in.
It's still
but there are still ways that you could see the property. You might not be able to get the full tour, be near certain parts or people because of the
well,
you should be able to call up and say, I'd like to see it because I'd like to come there. And
no, you should be able to do it. Like, for example, if they want to come to the Beachcomber, you can do a time when all the patients are in group.
There you go.
They're in group.
There's no exposure.
Yeah, there's no exposure. There's no problem doing it at that time. Even if they are, then you put on the mask like everyone else is doing. You can see the program. You can get to talk to somebody, but do not you just now you talk to friends, find out about that that have been through treatment. I should say.
Yeah.
You just don't want to hear, oh yeah, we had a blast. That may not be the program you want. Yes, I learned a lot. Yes, there were some people that were really motivated. The therapists were very good. Not that I had fun. That's not what you want necessarily hear. Even though the person's sober.
Yeah. So, so you've got the Beachcomber. You're working with FATC. Mm-hmm. You're working on an EAP conference that's going to be in the area. And what we'll do is we'll do a show that's dedicated to that coming up shortly. Okay. That way everybody can find out about it. Maybe we'll have a few people come in and talk about what's going to happen. And don't be afraid of going to the conference. If you want to go in person, that's fine. It's in Melbourne. But they're going to do it online as well. So
yeah. We're looking for. We always
crazy stuff. This online stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But the conference, I've always wanted to put on a conference where everyone has. You have fun, but you learn. Yeah. I mean, because we are in a stressful industry. We are as our therapists. It's a very stressful job. You are dealing with some people having some really emotional problems, and the family is, and you're sometimes being boxed by one side from the other side.
Yeah,
and it's a very stressful position to try to manage that. So we always want to have a conference that you learn something, but you can also enjoy it because then also get to talk to other therapists out there and find out what's going on. If everything's virtual, you don't get to see the other person. You don't get to hear what's going on, or you always, oh yeah, we're having that problem too. You don't get to do that unless you get to a conference and connect with people. And then you find some things that you might be doing right or wrong.
Yeah.
We need to find both. Because there's some, I always say, I need to find out what we're doing wrong as well as what we're doing right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to this. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I am too. Joe, you and I are good friends, and hopefully after you see me on a golf course, you'll still respect me because I'm pretty bad.
Well, I play 4 times a year, so you don't get good that often. Yeah.
And I always say, listen, any asshole can play on the fairways. Come play in the woods where the real men play. That's where I am all the time. All right. Yeah. Joe, I want to thank you for your time, my friend.
I could have done another hour. It's enjoyable talking to you with your nice brick building here.
Thank you.
No, but I enjoyed that because we always I met him today and we went boom, boom, boom. We were just catching up and it was like, wow, we hadn't seen each other for a week or something.
Yeah. So it's good to spend time again with you, and that's one of the things people don't see is that the good people in this industry, you make really good friends and they support each other very, very well. We don't get into the cutthroat stuff. We don't do any of that stuff, and so it's good to have people like you. I appreciate your friendship and what you do out there, my friend.
Right. You can help somebody. I get joy helping people.
Yes.
And that's in anything, helping in anything, not just in this, but whatever. You're helping someone on the road. So when they need help, pick them up, give them some help.
There we go. That's how we're going to end it. That's fantastic. I want to thank everybody for listening in and watching. I encourage you again to reach out, talk to our friends over at Beachcomber. Give them a call or an email. Information's on the screen. But for now, for my friend Joe Bryan, I'm Scott Jones. Thanks for watching The Truth About Addiction and Recovery.